Hello, I'm Heather King. I am thrilled to be at Portsmouth Abbey by way of Pasadena, California. And vis-a-vis inclining the ear of our heart, I want to talk about pilgrimage. There's a Catholic writer you may know, Catherine Doherty. Here's one of her books that I love, Storanic. Um, Catherine Doherty was a Russian emigre who came over to the States in the 40s or so. She's kind of forced out, had a very difficult time, ended up, she's kind of a mystic, and she ended up in Combermere, Ontario, where she founded a lay community called Madonna House that is still there, and I've been there. Um, but she was really big on this kind of Russian hermit tradition, and they would wander the countryside with a rucksack and nothing more than a bit of black bread and a packet of salt and a Bible, murmuring the Jesus prayer. And she wrote a bunch of books. One of them is called Pustinia. And Pustinia is a little hut where you go and sit in solitude and silence and get closer to God. I'm a major introvert, so I love this kind of thing. And then there's Stranic, which actually means pilgrimage. And in it, she talks about the pilgrimage of our daily life, which is our major pilgrimage that we take every day. Maybe we work in an office, maybe we're a housewife. But just to give you a taste of her writing, she says, yes, there is a secret about pilgrimages, the acceptance of pain. The very sentences, arise and go, take up my cross and follow me, spell pain. The mere thought of taking up Christ's cross and following him somewhere, nowhere, no place is frightening. And when that fear gets hold of you, your pilgrimage ceases. So she gets across that pilgrimage is not some airy-fairy thing. It's a perilous undertaking, and it's a great risk, and it's a walk into the unknown that we're all called in our pilgrimage to Christ. And then she talks about how our feet get bloody. As Christ said, you go without, metaphorically at least, an extra pair of sandals or an extra tunic. And she says, I suddenly knew why my feet were bloody. I was going into the depths of men's hearts. That is a precipitous pilgrimage. You walk on sharp gravel. You try to hold on to something, but there is nothing to hold on to. So when you go into the depths of men's hearts, your feet get bloody. So there you go. And so I always had this, I'm a big romantic, and I always love to picture myself as this kind of star of my own movie. So that was the sort of pilgrimage, either that or the Camino, which I've wanted to go on for about 25 years. But I actually took a kind of pilgrimage about 10 years ago, and it looked very, very different from that one, from the one described, from any kind of romantic idea of pilgrimage. And what happened was, I'm a convert. I came into the church in 96. I was married at the time, ended up getting divorced and had my marriage annulled. And right in the heels of that, and I was also about 50, so I was going through menopause. I was going through every kind of unhealed wound that I'd ever had in my life, sort of unbeknownst to me quite yet. That's what happens at that time of life. But anyway, what happened? The main thing that happened was right in the heels of the end of my marriage, fairly 14-year marriage, I fell madly, insanely, cataclysmically in love with someone who, as it turned out, did not remotely feel the same way about me. And what ensued was this years long. To this day, I don't even know how to adequately describe what it is. You can't understand it unless you've been through something yourself. I mean, it was partly, I think, who knows? I call it the thin line between passion and pathology. I mean, I think insofar as I'm capable of love, I think I really did fall in love with him. But it was also mixed with crazed obsession and addiction. I'm also a recovering alcoholic of many years, so I have the sort of addict gene in every cell of my body. But I mean, literally the first time after I talked to this guy, I drove home and I could have been arrested for DUI. I mean, I was just gone. And, and we did, it wasn't like he just said, "Oh, I'm not interested and you see you later." It was like, "I'm not interested, but let's have coffee for 3 hours." It was like that. You know, we did the sort of crazy dance that only two super wounded people are capable of doing. I should just speak for myself. But anyway, I was in anguish, and for any number of reasons. I mean, the blow to everything, my ego, for one thing, but way deeper than that was my whole sense of myself as a woman, especially, and a human being, and where was my love? I don't have children, so it was, where is my love, this crazy, gushing love that I'm dying to give to someone and to offer myself fully and to make something bigger than both of us and all of that. And it was like a stillborn. I was in such bewilderment of, why, God, why would you put this feeling in my heart and not have the object of it so not willing or able to receive it. And at the same time, as I said, I was obsessed. And so I felt guilty, and I also felt like all the work that I had done, masses of work, inner work, prayer and inventory and the Ignatian exercises and retreats and writing books and on and on and on, journaling. And I went to spiritual advisors. I went to confession. I wrote endlessly about it. I could not get out from under this thing. I couldn't figure out. I kept saying, I'll just never see him again. But then we traveled in the same circles, and I'd see him and it would just flare up. And there was just no way out that I could see that wasn't excruciating pain. And I was in such pain that my feet literally did become bloody. Like, I had this horrible skin ailment that settled in my feet. And I went to skin doctor after skin doctor. They gave me every kind of cortisone, steroids. Nothing helped. I couldn't sleep. I'd have to bathe my feet in a bucket of ice. It was and they literally were bleeding. Like, they were so unsightly. I could not. I was just 24/7. They at one point said, the only thing that might be able to help you is chemo. Like, they wanted me to have chemo for this skin ailment. I got boils at one point. I mean, literally, it's like the book of Job or something. Anyway, so finally, I came up with this idea. I was so restless and so sort of jumping out of my skin. So I decided I would get in my 96 Celica convertible and drive across country from Los Angeles to the coast of New Hampshire, where I was raised, because my mother was still alive at that point, 8 kids in my family, and I just thought, I will go home to mother, make this kind of archetypal journey, even though, I mean, I loved my mother and she loved me, but I'm the total over emoter, and my mother's was this wonderful, sane, grounded, healthy person, sort of, who didn't feel the need to exaggerate everything. So we but I somehow, and we've never had a really deep talk about anything, much less, especially not romance or sex or anything remotely approaching it. I mean, it's New England, right? But I just thought, you need to go home to your mother and just like touch down and come back again. So, and the way I decided, I wanted to make it a pilgrimage. So the way I did that was not by going to shrines or anything like that, but I decided, because my one thought was just stay close to Christ. You must stay close to Christ. And that was my one thought during the whole thing. I never, ever wavered. I mean, at the beginning, I thought, oh, I'm like the Virgin Mary. I've been brought to bring love into the world. And I mean, in a sense, that was actually, as it turned out, true, except not remotely the way I thought I was going to bring love into the world. But I just knew, I mean, I knew on some level that it was a religious experience, and that if I could just not, my two rules were, you cannot start drinking again, and you can't kill yourself. Jesus said he would be with you till the end of time. You just hang on one day at a time. And I also knew, by the way, not to, Jesus says when you fast, put on a clean shirt and comb your hair. Like, don't make a big production out of it. And even though I am a major over emoter, I just stuck to my schedule that I had developed as a follower of Christ many, many years before. Just you get up, you say the office each morning, you pray, you go to Mass if you possibly can. I've always been kind of a big daily Mass goer, and make yourself available to people and write, which is my job, my vocation, and keep your room clean and do your dishes and make your bed and all that, and just one day at a time. So I did that, but I decided to make it a pilgrimage by going to Mass every single day. So that's what I did. I packed up the Celica and took off, and I drove across Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all along the sort of, I went through Arkansas, West Virginia, and I've never had like a ton of money. I mean, I write for the church, so put it together. So I stayed at Super 8s and Motel 6s. I really sort of lived on sardines and Acmac crackers and dried fruit, and tons of coffee and Diet Coke. And I would drive, 600-700 miles a day sometimes. I would stay at wherever I could, cheap hotel or sometimes monasteries or convents. I found this great place in Appalachia, the Franciscan Appalachian Hermitage, and it was a cabin for $20 a night. I stayed there for a little bit. Anyway, I made it to the coast of New Hampshire. My mother, bless her, at that point, it turned out was in like the early stages of Alzheimer's. Not only did we not have any kind of deep talk, but I realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to come back here again when this is all over and try to get together with my siblings and figure out how we're going to take care of her. I start driving back, and get this, I stopped in Minnesota, where the guy came from, the small town, met his parents. This was with his full, he knew. And I went to Mass. This was super important to me. At the church, he had been raised Catholic, and of course, hated the church and was completely lapsed. But I knew I had to go to Mass at this church where he had been to school as a kid, because it would be the one Catholic church in the whole world at which we would both have attended Mass. So anyway. And who knows? I can laugh at myself, but it's either the like sort of wackiest thing I've ever done, or really sort of the greatest, because I did pray for him, and only God can untangle this stuff. Anyway, I came back. I made it back. I looked like a member of the Donner Party by the time I went to Mass every single day, which is kind of a feat, because there's a lot of parts of the country where they barely have daily Mass. There's not enough priests to go around. So it wasn't a relaxing. It was a really hard driving. Not that I was walking or anything. I was driving a car, but still, in its way, it was a pilgrimage, and took 7 weeks. And I got back, and I won't say that, I was instantly healed. But when I got back, it still dragged on after that. But I really feel like something happened to me during that time. In retrospect, I think God sort of etherizes us sometimes. It really was this liminal time and space where I was kind of taken out of the world. sort of, I won't say against my will, but because it was in the grip of something that was so much greater than me that I couldn't, we're so much about excellence and control in this culture. And it's really a sort of mystery and a gift, in spite of the pain when we come up against something that my alcoholism was another thing that I suffered through when I was going to law school. But when we come up against something that are all our excellence and I'm very, very driven, but our drivenness, our money, if we have money, avails nothing. So it was something like that. And finally, I will just say I'm on the other side of it. And I think this is the thing about, and just as all the transformation myths promise, and just as in Dante's Divine Comedy, and just as we're promised in the resurrection, like something new has been made out of me. And one of the things was I sort of accepted with joy that I'm really meant to be a celibate and not to be married. And it's not this, oh my God, that was such a hideous debacle, I have given up. It's not that at all. It's something totally different where, oh, my love is so, I guess you could say so great or so intense. Only Christ could fulfill it, or he was the focus of it all along. And this is the other thing. You go through these kind of crucifixions, and they are crucifixions. I mean, this was suffering on a scale that I have never experienced in my life. I literally felt like I was being flayed for a long period of time. And yet, so the suffering is real, just like in the crucifixion. It's real. You come out of it and you bear the wounds, and at the same time, you're none the worse for wear. This is the resurrection. You don't even believe you're going to survive the thing, but you do. You're the same, and yet you're different, and you're none the worse for wear. It's just amazing. You're still ready, willing, and able, as Christ was. Let me make you breakfast. So anyway, that's some of what I want to talk about. And my guess is many people have had some kind of similar experience. So I hope we all get to talk about that. And thank you so much.